Hello, and welcome back to the PNN. My name is Parker Taft. Today is day 23, and we're moving on in our personal finance series to savings instruments. Many of you are probably thinking, what does savings and instruments have to do with anything? Well, it's a fancy financial term for basically the tools that you use to save with. A good example, and the common example, would be a savings account. That is considered a savings instrument. And I thought, since most of you will probably be working this summer, that a little financial education might be helpful to maximize your gain from your hard work and effort. So, let us begin. So, you have types of instruments. There are many types of instruments, and there's many different variations. I advise you go and research all of them. But this is just a quick overview of the basic ones. You have certificate of deposits, which is a product offered by banks and credit unions that provide an interest rate premium in exchange for the customer agreeing to leave a lump sum deposit untouched for a predetermined period of time. It could be anywhere from a month to a year to 5 years. Then you have money market accounts. This is an interest-bearing account at a bank or credit union. They often pay a higher interest rate than regular passbook savings accounts. That's your everyday humdrum savings account, and often include check writing and debit card privileges. They also come with restrictions that make them less flexible than a regular checking account. Mainly, you can only withdraw a certain amount a month. It depends on the fancy calculations that they use to determine interest rate and how much you make a month. So it's good if you want to save money and need to have it liquid, access to it, but you're not going to be withdrawing from it every day. It would be something that would be separate from your checking account. And then you have money market mutual funds. This is not technically a savings account, it's an investment account that's highly liquid, meaning you can access the money easily and readily. And it's not something like stock or bond, which, although liquid, takes a little longer to sell. It's a kind of mutual fund that invests only in highly liquid, near-term instruments, such as cash equivalent securities, and high credit rating debt-based securities with a short-term maturity. You may be wondering, well, that went completely over my head. Highly liquid means easy to cash in on. You can get your money back easily. Near-term instruments are basically short-term, stuff that has a high turnover rate. So it's basically, you loan your friend money for a year, and at the end of the year, he pays you back. Actually, a better example would be you loan your friend money for a day, and then he pays you back the next day. That's a sort of near-term debt instrument. And then cash equivalent securities, that's bonds, treasury paper, basically the stuff that they sell to you from the Treasury Department to finance the U.S. government's debt. And then high credit rating, this is typically also treasury bonds or debt from esteemed corporations like Google, IBM, Amazon. And then you have everyone's favorite savings account. Now there's many. There's the passbook, which is this humdrum, same old that you get at almost any bank. Then you have high interest savings account, high interest, high yield. There's so many different types of savings accounts that I'm not going to get into all the types here, but I'm just going to give you the basic definition. A basic type of bank account that allows you to deposit money, keep it safe, and withdraw funds all while earning interest. I like to emphasize the interest is minimal, although it's better than what you would get on your checking account, and you can access it whenever you need it. I advise everyone have a savings account, but if you really want to make money, it's better that you have either one of the three listed above for short term. Long term, if you want to invest in, I advise investing in stocks and stuff like that, but we'll talk about that in another episode. How do they work? So certificate of deposits function like a savings account, except with typically higher interest rates, and you're not allowed to withdraw your money for the term of the deposit without incurring a penalty. So you put $50 into a certificate of deposit. Most of them deal in hundreds or more, but we'll use $50. So you put $50 down. Actually, we'll use 100 because that's a lot easier math. You put $100 down for a certificate of deposit for a month, and at the end of the month, it's at we'll go with a 10% interest rate. So at the end of the month, when you cash in that certificate of deposit, it will be $110. So you'll see that there's an increase. But if you were to try to say in the middle of the month you really needed that $100, if you pulled it out, you would incur an interest penalty and you wouldn't get your $10. You'd get your base $100 back because that's what you put into it, and they have to guarantee the balance that you put into it. But you wouldn't get anything from it. the interest. Then you have the money market account. It's basically a high interest savings account, which invests in short-term, very liquid cash securities to increase your rate of return while also protecting your balance. Certificate of deposits, money market accounts, and savings accounts. The balance that you put in is guaranteed by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. It was created during the Great Depression to ensure people that they wouldn't lose their life savings or the money they put into the bank because of a bank failure. Basically, the government will insure the money in your account up to a certain predetermined amount. After that, uh, it wouldn't be covered. So if you have like $1 million, most people would break it up into smaller accounts or put it in investments and land, etc. They wouldn't just keep it all in a savings account. So it's a higher interest savings account which invests in short-term, very liquid cash securities to increase your rate of return. It's more flexible than certificate of deposit, and as I said before, the balance is insured by the FDIC. Now, money market mutual funds. As I stated previously, it's an investment fund. A mutual fund is basically an investment company that goes out and buys a wide variety of stocks, bonds, etc., and puts it into a giant portfolio. And then they sell stakes in that portfolio like the portfolio was a company. So we'll use myself as an example. Say I go out and buy some Apple, Google, Amazon stocks. So I then decide that I'm going to make money from holding the stocks by selling shares in this new fund to you. And say I sell it to you at $1 a share, and you get a 1% stake in the mutual fund. So all the disbursements and interest the fund gets from holding those stocks from those companies will be dispersed amongst the various investors. So in this particular case, for a money market mutual fund, it is short-term liquid and debt-based securities that it mainly invests in. Again, as I said, these are short-term, mostly treasury bills, T-bills, bonds, and highly ranked corporate debt. Returns are dependent on the performance of the fund and prevailing interest rates, so returns aren't set. It's also a short-term investment rather than a savings instrument like the CDs and MMAs. CDs are the abbreviation for certificates of deposit. M&As are the abbreviation for money market accounts. So the balance isn't guaranteed. It's not insured. It's like if you were buying on the stock market, although it's at a much lower rate and you have a much lower risk, you still have to deal with the ups and downs of the market. And then a savings account. Again, as I said before, multitude of different savings accounts, but basically the basic savings account works as an account to keep your money safe while accruing interest with unlimited withdrawability. Extremely lower interest rates, however, make it rather unattractive. I advise having a savings account, a ready available reserve of money in case of an emergency, but you shouldn't be using as a savings account as your primary investment tool, either in short-term or long-term goals. So here are the pros and cons, a few of the pros and cons. A certificate of deposits, their pros are they have fixed returns. The interest rate is set once you put the money down and sign the dotted line for the certificate of deposit. That interest rate will stay the same for the entire time that it is going to be active. So say you have it for a year and you accrue 1% interest a month on it, it'll be 12% interest in the year, and you will get 12% interest on your money. So you put down $100, you get $112 back at the end of the year. It's federally insured. So say the bank that you did this with goes belly up, the principal, the base $100 that you put in is guaranteed and will be paid back to you. You won't lose it. And there's very little risk. Because it's basically the certificate of deposit is just the money that you put into a certificate of deposit the bank uses to put into mortgages or small business loans in your local community. Very few of them, at least since the '08 crash, have taken it and played with it on the stock market. Cons are it does tie up your money for a set period of time when you can't access it without penalty. So for some people who like ready access to their money, it can be a bit disconcerting. So, and plus I wouldn't advise putting your emergency fund into CDs or having your emergency fund made up of CDs because they're not easy to cash in quickly without incurring a penalty. You wouldn't incur a penalty on the principal. So like I said, you invest the base $100. You wouldn't incur a penalty on that, but you would incur it on the interest. So you wouldn't receive, so say you had to take out 6 months in, so you would lose this out the other 6 months on interest, and say they take a penalty of half of the interest due accrued, which would be 6%, so take the half, 3%, so you'd be only walking away with $103. Not good for an investment tool. Now, money market accounts. Pros, high interest rates. They're much higher than certificate of deposits typically. Uh, Plus, they're also insured by the FDIC, at least the balance is. And you do have check writing and debit card privileges. You have a limited amount of access to the funds. It's not locked up in something you can't access, or you will incur a penalty on your returns. That's not the case with this one. There is some cons, however. There's a minimum balance requirement. You have to keep it at a certain balance. So most of them start at $1,000 or more. So if you need that money or that money draws down, it can hurt your returns and incur fees and penalties on that, which can make it harder for you to get back up above the minimum balance. There's fees because it will be being managed by the bank. It's not like a certificate of deposit where it's just, you deposit the money and then the bank loans it out in mortgages and small business loans in your local community. This is basically it being invested in short-term securities on the market, but the balance is guaranteed, and they only use money to gain the interest and the returns necessary to fund the account based on the interest rate that you agreed on. And then there's limited transactions. You can only, withdraw, say, $100 from a $1,000 account a month, and you have to keep it at that $1,000 minimum. So it doesn't allow you the flexibility that, say, a regular savings account would, but you would make higher returns. You then have money market mutual funds, again, an investment, not to be confused with money market accounts. They're typically low risk, highly liquid, and have better returns than bank accounts, both money market accounts and certificate of deposits. But that's because they play the market. They're not FDIC insured, which means the principal you invested, if you invest $100 in it, you're not guaranteed to get $100 back once you withdraw. There's no capital appreciation, meaning your money, you'll be gaining interest, but the intrinsic value of your money won't increase. Like, say, a stock, you hold a stock, and as well as getting dividends, the money dispersed to you from the company profits, which, say, is $5. Your stock price can also go up to, say, $5, so your real profit would be $10. That doesn't work in this one. And it's sensitive to interest rate fluctuation and monetary policy, which, if you look right now with the Federal Reserve printing money like it's going out of style and interest rates bouncing into the negatives, you can see why money market mutual funds at the current moment would not be that desirable. But once the market starts growing, like we had between 2010 and the beginning of this year, you can see why it would be good, because you can keep your money aside and still have access to it, but you can also make good, consistent returns, so your money is still making money for you, and it's not just sitting around in a checking or savings account making 0.02% interest. And then we come to the savings accounts. They are safe, FDIC insured, and they have slow, reliable growth. The interest rate, depending on the current market environment and what the bank and you agreed on, is pretty stable. It's very low, but it's stable. And then the cons are it's low interest rate. There are fees to maintain it per year, either per month, per quarter, or per year. And then, again, there's minimum balances, most often $1,000 or something like that. So I'd advise that you keep your emergency fund, your ready reserve of cash for emergencies, in a savings account so that you can access it right away. But any excess money that you have that isn't going into long-term investments, I'd advise going into short-term investments like certificate of deposits, money market accounts, and money market mutual funds. Short-term meaning money that you would want to access within 1 to 5 years. Something, say you're saving up for a car or vacation. That would be something that you put in short-term. If you're saving up for a family member's college, buying a house, I'd advise long-term investments, which I will talk about later on in this series. So, tips on how to get started. Do your research. That is the most important, and is the one thing I want you to, one of the two things I want you to take away from this. Find which tool is best for you and your financial goals. It's important that you write out your financial goals and know what you want to do and when you want to reach them. So let's say you have a car in mind. That car costs $10,000. You have $1,000 right now. You want to reach it and be able to buy it in 2 years. So how are you going to invest that $1,000 to make the $10,000 so you can buy the car in that amount of time? Which interest rates do you want? What amount of risk are you comfortable with? If you want something that's absolutely no risk, you can go with a savings account, but you're going to have to work your butt off and make a lot of money because the interest rate will be minimum. But if you're willing to take a little more risk, you can go on a money market mutual fund. And maybe that would, depending on the market variables, give you more money, but there would be more risk to it. Shop around. Whether it is CDs, money market accounts, money market mutual funds, or savings accounts, different banks and institutions offer different interest rates, incentives, and privileges, as well as different restrictions on how you can use your money, access the accounts, policies, and fee schedule. Fee schedule is what fees they charge and when they charge it. So it's best to compare rates and policies. There's some good comparison websites and apps out there. I advise, and my business teacher is the one who told us about this, is bankrate.com. It is one of the better ones out there, and it covers everything from CDs, mortgages, student loans, everything out there, and it can help you shop around and compare which one was better for you and your goals. And lastly, make sure whatever you choose fits with your current and short-term financial goals. Example, building an emergency fund, saving up to buy that car you want, saving up for that dream vacation. These tools are good for those. Again, I will reemphasize, they aren't long-term investments. Long-term investments, stocks, bonds, mutual funds are good for long-term goals like buying that dream house or becoming financially independent or preparing for retirement. So this is about it. As always, I will leave my sources and further reading for you in the description below. I hope you all have enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click that bell button for notifications. I look forward to seeing your comments on what other topics I should do on this channel, as well as how you're doing on your 30-day challenges, and just how you're doing in general. As always, this is the PNN broadcast signing off.